All right, it says we're recording. Excellent. We got one person watching, which is me. On Rumble, at least. I don't know. So this thing is supposed to automatically take anything that we're integrated with. The comments should show up in the middle source here, as opposed to us having to dig through the comments on the individual websites.
Well, no, we had that on Restream too, where it's consolidated, I think.
We did, but I think it didn't work for Rumble.
Yeah, that could be.
Okay.
Discord, yeah.
All right, Nima, you want to let's review this video. Let's talk about some Bitcoin. We're recording. We're live.
Okay, let's see.
Grayscale CEO Michael Sonnenschein joins us here on set at Post 9. He rang the opening bell this morning in celebration of its Bitcoin Trust ETF. Welcome. Good to have you.
Thanks for having me. It's wonderful to be here.
Why do you think Bitcoin has had such an amazing run here to start the year?
Well, a lot of pent-up demand based on the spot Bitcoin ETFs coming to market. GBTC uplisted in January of this year, and that really opened the door to a lot of other spot Bitcoin ETFs also coming to market. And so we're seeing tremendous flows, tremendous investor demand.
Yes.
So explain to me again, like an idiot, me the idiot, not you, what exactly is an EFT?
ETF. It's it's an exchange traded fund. So it's, you know what an investment fund is?
Well, I mean, yeah, in what sense?
In your brokerage account, you can buy an investment. You can put your money towards an investment fund, which takes your money and then, according to some fund strategy, allocates it to investments, to assets.
Mm-hmm.
And an exchange.
Okay, so I'm not necessarily picking or buying this stock or that stock. I'm handing, like, here's $1,000 to you. You pick the stocks because you're good at it, sort of thing.
Yeah, either you pick the stocks, or in the case of an index fund, the fund just allocates the money to all stocks in the index that it represents proportionately. In which case, and those are the best funds, in my opinion, to invest, because they have the lowest fees. Fees are like 0.01, 0.02, in some cases 0%. And an ETF is basically like a fund, but you can buy it like stocks. So it's a fund that's chopped up into individual stock units, and those stocks are traded on stock exchanges with prices going up and down every day. With with investment funds, it's usually outside of the stock. So the fund itself is not really traded. You just give them your money, and then they take care of it. But your fund share has a certain value, and you can look it up in your account. But the brokerage account is just a little different. The ETF is just basically a fund that acts like a stock.
You can trade it faster, right? I can buy it this morning and sell it in the afternoon, sort of speed, right?
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay, so this guy's just saying one of the reasons that there's pent-up demand, and this ETF that has come out, or more than one that has come out, is one of the reasons that the price has gone up for Bitcoin?
Well, I mean, it could also be inverse. It could be the price has gone up because of the ETF. Because the ETF was this big event that everyone was waiting for years.
Uh-huh.
And it was very difficult to push through. There was legal barriers, regulatory barriers. And this year in January is when it finally happened. And there was huge anticipation behind it. Everyone was waiting for it, and everyone expected Bitcoin to rally after those funds go live. But then what happened was a quick correction instead. You know, the Bitcoin price came back down after the funds launched. But now the rally seems like that rally has started. because now the price is it's close to $63,000 now. And when the ETF went live, I think it was somewhere around 40,000 or 38,000 or something like that.
How much of it do you think has to do with the fact that people are simply excited for the ETF versus the fact that the ETF made it through all the regulatory hoops actually legitimizes it to the face of the public even more?
Yeah, both of it.
Yeah.
So for one, yeah, the ETF legitimizes it, opens up the possibility for institutional investors to allocate their money into Bitcoin, which wasn't easy before because Bitcoin was this weird outside thing. But now there's an ETF where they can allocate. And then there's also private investors who may want to have some portion of their portfolio in Bitcoin, but they don't want to go to a Bitcoin exchange. They don't want to get a Bitcoin wallet, etc.
Yeah.
Right. And so the ETF makes it super easy for them. It makes it look more legit to them. And
so this is showing up on like normal stock brokerage websites. This
Yeah.
Bitcoin ETF.
yeah, you can go to Fidelity and type in GBTC, and then there'll be a share that you can buy.
Okay, so it's literally open. It's literally opening up the market to people who either can't figure out the current crypto market or are unwilling to for some other reason.
Yeah, it's opening the floodgates to a huge audience, a huge pools of money that previously were not able to invest or reluctant to invest in crypto. So yeah, I think I think it's going to be a slow trickle because there's going to be more and more individuals hearing about this and seeing this price appreciation that's happening right now. And they'll start approaching their financial advisors and then ask, hey, can we allocate some? And then or the other way around, some financial advisors, in order to look good in front of their clients, they'll say, hey, put a small allocation in Bitcoin. There's some calculations that have been done on how much your portfolio would have been boosted, even if it's just a conservative portfolio, if you had just allocated 5% to Bitcoin. And it's pretty substantial, even just a 5% allocation. I have to look up the exact numbers, but it was pretty substantial. Maybe something like 100% better than without it over like a couple of years period.
Yeah. And you're not even talking about like getting it at the beginning. You're talking about after we've hit the 4 zeros of value for the Bitcoin.
Yeah, I don't know how far back that went, but yeah, it wasn't too long ago. Yeah, it was possible that was still in the 5-digit, most likely in the 5, because it's been there for a while now. It's been in the 5 digits since 2017, I think, maybe when first time, maybe even 2016. I forgot when it first went past 10,000.
Word. Let's keep watching.
And that's really also outpacing the supply of Bitcoin coming into the market every day, which is really being additive to price.
But aren't you specifically at Grayscale seeing outflows? I've seen recent data. Bloomberg says 7.4 billion of outflows in the last 30 days.
Well, I think it's important to think about how GBTC came to market. It came to market with almost $30 billion of assets and investors of all shapes and sizes. And so we anticipated some outflows as opposed to some of the new products coming to market starting from zero. I do think, though, if we zoom out and we look at what that investor demand is like.
Can you explain that? So she says there's 7.4, I think she said, $1 billion in outflows. Does she mean people selling?
Yeah, I mean, I know that with this particular, there's like 11 ETFs or 10 ETFs that have come out. I know that with this particular ETF, which was, I think GBTC has been around for a while, but not as an ETF. It's some different kind of asset class, but it was already possible to invest in it, just not as an ETF. And apparently there was a lot of people from the FTX collapse who held, or the FTX organization itself was holding GBTC, and when the ETF came out, they had to start selling, so there was pretty big outflows. But that was a couple of weeks ago. But it could be that she's referring to the period over the past couple of weeks, or even since this ETF was launched. I don't know. Let's hear his reasoning and see what he's saying there.
I do think, though, if we zoom out and we look to market starting from zero, as opposed to some of the new products coming to market starting from zero. I do think, though, if we zoom out assets and investors of all BTC came to market, it came to market with almost 30
days.
Well, I think it's important to think about how GBTC came to market. It came to market with almost $30 billion of assets and investors of all shapes and sizes. And so we anticipated some outflows as opposed to some of the new products coming to market starting from zero. I do think, though, if we zoom out and we look at what that investor demand.
What
does he mean that it came to market with $30 billion in assets?
Yes. So because GBTC, like I said, GBTC is the only ETF, I believe, that already existed before this whole craze started. They were not an ETF, but some other asset class, some other classification of asset. So they already had money invested. So they're already starting with a certain pool of money, with a certain number of investors, and all the other ones, they started from zero, right? They announced, okay, now we're ready, let's go, and then all the money started coming in. So it's easier to go from 0 to 5 billion than it is to go from 30 billion to 35 billion.
Well, and then if you're coming in with 30, the fact that only 7.4 went out, you're still up 22.6, right?
Well, that's the money inflows. So that's people investing in this ETF. It's also possible that some of it went out of GBTC and went into other ETFs, because I think GBTC has slightly higher fees than some of the other ETFs. So, GBTC was there before, and now there's 11 other options. Okay, so it's not unlikely that some people will reallocate from GBTC to other ones. So his point is just, we were already here at a certain level, and now all these other ETFs have come in. So they might have lost some flows to some of these other ETFs.
And basically the point that she's bringing up is kind of a cherry-picked point. I mean, I don't know if she's trying to say it to disgruntle the conversation, but if you're just like, oh my God, 7.4 billion went out, it's like, yeah, have some context.
Yeah. No, I mean, she's bringing up an issue that's been mentioned here and there in the news media. So I think it's a valid point. And when these fund CEOs when they come on these financial channels, they do get challenged in a very polite manner oftentimes, to see how do they respond to this or that concern.
Right.
It could even have been prepared. It could even be that they prepared all this to inform their customers.
Let me give you a typical criticism that someone who's not very savvy in the situation might offer to you.
Yes, exactly.
Respond. Yeah, okay.
Demand is like. We've never seen such insatiable demand for an ETF wrapper providing access to a new asset class like we have here.
But I guess the concern for you might be that there are a lot of other options. BlackRock's seeing inflows. A lot of your competitors are seeing inflows. We just learned this week that some of the big banks like Wells Fargo and Morgan Stanley are looking at getting into these products as well.
Yeah, we're just at the tipping point. I think that, many of my other colleagues in the industry have called for a new wave of adoption as Bitcoin ETFs become available through advised wealth channels. There's over $40 trillion of advised wealth in the U.S., and they largely have not been participating in Bitcoin or the crypto asset class more broadly. So we do think that, we're still in the early innings of this, only a couple weeks since spot Bitcoin ETFs came to market.
But how do you plan to stay competitive when it's getting so crowded?
Well, GBTC has one of the most diverse shareholder bases out there. It's been in market for 10 years. We have some of the tightest spreads and largest liquidity out there. And so it does bring a differentiated value and that track record that a lot of investors are looking for when they're making those allocation decisions.
And now you're pressing the SEC to take it a step further and approve options
Correct.
on the ETF. Why is that, as you say, vital?
It really is vital. You know, what we see here is another situation where perhaps spot Bitcoin ETFs are not being treated fairly. We have a robust ecosystem of Bitcoin futures-based ETFs. There are options traded on those products, but there are not yet options approved on the spot Bitcoin ETFs. And we believe this is a fundamental, characteristic and feature that we need within this ecosystem. Price discovery, investors being able to manage their positions more effectively. This is something that we know a lot of investors want, and at Grayscale, that's what we do. We advocate for our investors.
What type of investor base are you seeing coming into the ETF?
Well, it's really a broad base. We definitely.
So he's kind of going on what we were mentioning before. So he's saying that, okay, we got the ETF past the SEC, but this is only part of the way. We actually want to go to the point where there could be options on the ETF or options on Bitcoin directly.
Options on the ETF.
Options on the ETF, I guess, for whatever financial stabilizing reasons that I don't understand that may or may not exist. But the more important point is you can do options on everything else. Why can't we do options on this? Is that the argument that he's making?
Correct. I mean, in the crypto world, if you are holding crypto directly, then you have you have options to do options already, basically, because there's big exchanges like Binance and other ones. I've never gotten into that kind of trading, honestly. I don't really care for it, but there are exchanges that offer that. Plus, there's, as far as I know, there's also decentralized products that allow you basically to emulate the effect of options directly on the blockchain or some kind of blockchain.
Stuff gets so bizarre. Can't we just buy it and sell it? We're selling the option to buy it and sell it.
I mean, options are basically like futures. They are instruments. They're insurance instruments, basically, and some people need that insurance, and some people offer that insurance because they want to profit from it. Mm-hmm. So there's that aspect, but there's also then the aspect of speculating on these and losing your shirt because you got a little too wild there. So yeah, it's technically not something that the retail investor should be doing, but large institutions, they need to trade options sometimes for various reasons.
Got it. Keep going.
Definitely have direct retail investors that are trading for their own account, adding Bitcoin to their portfolios.
But wasn't the hope that this would gin up more interest from institutions?
Oh, absolutely. We have some of the world's largest hedge funds, pensions, endowments, et cetera. They are very pleased to be using the ETF wrapper to get Bitcoin exposure. It's a wrapper they know well. It's a wrapper that works well for them. And when they're trying to put on large or take off.
If I buy the ETF, I go on Fidelity and I buy, what is it, GBTC?
Mm-hmm.
So I put $1. I mean, not that that's significant. I put $100,000 on GBTC. Does that cause more Bitcoin to be purchased somewhere?
Yeah, so the money flows into the ETF, and then the ETF. Honestly, I don't know the exact technicalities behind it, but basically the ETF uses that money to then buy Bitcoin on your behalf.
Okay, so me buying GBTC does cause the price to go up. It's part of the demand pressure that would cause the price to go up.
Right. That's why people are expecting the price to go up, because these ETFs are opening the floodgates to tons and tons of money that was previously prohibited or unwilling.
Right, and then again, I'm just wrapping my brain around this. Again, the reason, I mean, multiple reasons, but one of the big ones, I think you were just alluding to it, is that, okay, I buy GBTC when I could just buy Bitcoin myself, but I think wallets are weird. I think they're too complicated. I already have a stock trading website in the more traditional sense. I can give the money to you, who is managing this fund, and you turn around and buy the BTC for me.
Exactly.
Now, I don't own the BTC directly. You own the BTC, but we have an agreement that says that's there to back up what I paid you.
Yes, and depending on the fund's bylaws or whatever regulations or commitments, you may be able to request delivery of actual BTC. Also, what GBTC did, actually, I remember now. I think it was GBTC. They published their Bitcoin addresses where the Bitcoin is sitting to the public. Okay, so super transparent, right? You can see it right there.
Okay. So
And
it's like the books are open. You can get a live information. Here's a wallet with how much money's in it.
exactly.
Right now,
And what started what started happening, of course, because the crypto community is crazy, people started donating to those public addresses. So now
just to mess it up.
was it
Just to mess it up, or just to,
just out of appreciation? I don't know if it messes things up, but yeah, it is kind of weird, right? You have this strict accounting system and SEC approved, and everything has to match perfectly, and suddenly they're just adding tips to the pool.
and I mean, with my own business, like I suck so badly at bookkeeping, and it's been a nightmare for me to get in bookkeeping to a place that it's not all messed up. Like, just the idea of, okay, I appreciate that you just gave me $10, but it completely threw my books out of whack.
Right.
Right? And I could just totally imagine if everything has to go well with the SEC, like you spend 120 days putting everything together, you file it to the SEC, and you put it up, and suddenly your numbers don't balance anymore, and you're like, ah! I don't know if that's actually a problem or not, but that is pretty funny that, of course, if it's an address, anybody can send money to that address.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, I was just trying to find where, but I can't find where that was, but there's definitely people sending tips.
Off large positions in Bitcoin, a large liquid ETF like GBTC really allows them to do so.
I mean, it helps that Bitcoin has had such a tremendous start, which may be fueled by the interest in the ETFs. Sure. But when it comes to if and when there's a downturn in the price of Bitcoin, what are your expectations, and how do you prepare to tell people that this was safe and the right move?
Of course. Well, myself, Grayscale, we've been in the market for 10 years now. So we've weathered all types of cycles and had to have conversations with clients throughout those cycles. Investing in Bitcoin is not for the faint of heart. It is a volatile asset, but the conversations we are having with clients these days are actually a little bit more focused on the future. We're about a month and a half away from the next Bitcoin halving, which has historically been a really important price catalyst for Bitcoin, and a lot of investors are focused on that and what it may mean for Bitcoin this time around.
Now,
April.
Why is
when are they?
What's the rationale for the price going up for the halving? Why are people suddenly more excited when the halving happens?
Yeah, when the halving happens, that means that the inflation rate of Bitcoin drops. So currently, if you're a miner and you successfully mine a block, you get rewarded with 6.25 BTC. And after the halving, which is, I think it's probably a little more than a month from now or so, the miners will be rewarded with 3.125 BTC for every successful block. Mm-hmm. This happens every 4 years, right? It started with 50 BTC, then 25 BTC, then 12.5, then 6.25. Now we're going to 3.125. So the new supply coming in of Bitcoin is dropping. And that's the rationale for people to say that the price goes up. For me, in my opinion, I don't quite understand this, because the halving events, in the world of finance, right, there's things that are very predictable in the future, and there are things that are less predictable. Right? If a very predictable event occurs that everyone expected, like, for example, Google beats profit expectations by 50%. No, sorry. Google's profit increases by 50% per share, but everyone already expected that increase. Then that doesn't help. The stock price will probably stay the same, maybe drop off because people are bored with it or whatever. Mm-hmm. If an event is less known then that is obviously a pivotal situation where people are waiting to hear the news about that specific event. And then so
So we don't know if the event's going to be good or bad, and if it turns out to be good, then everybody's excited, woo, and then
right.
arrive.
So, I was just trying to think of an example, but for example, whether or not the Bitcoin ETFs are going to be approved by the SEC, people didn't know for sure whether it was going to happen. And after it was approved, now I think it was probably sort of 50-50, people thinking it wouldn't happen versus people thinking it would happen. So I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, so now with mining, with the halving, this is the most predictable event in the world of finance. There's not. It's written in stone from the day Bitcoin started that these halving events will happen. So I think maybe it's just every time this halving comes around, this narrative gets pushed that the halving is an important event, and the story that there's now fewer Bitcoins coming in, and a lot of people get excited. And through that, a lot of new people just get exposed to and hear about Bitcoin and then stay there. And they hear about all the other benefits of it. And that's the reason why the price goes up. Not necessarily the halving itself, not necessarily the numbers behind the halving, because that doesn't really make much sense anymore at this point. The majority of all Bitcoins has already been mined. Mm-hmm. So the incremental increase from here on out is going to be rather insignificant compared with the supply of Bitcoin that's always there. Technically, anyone holding Bitcoin is a potential supplier of Bitcoins. And that supply at this point is much larger than the mining rewards that are still forthcoming.
Right. Well, whatever the case, if it's historical that this drives the price up, then it's not unreasonable to expect that the price will go up more.
It is. It happens to be the case that over the past decade, whenever this halving happens, there's some kind of movement that happens. And I tend to get more and more worried the more and more people expect that this will happen as a certainty.
Right, because that's usually when it doesn't.
Exactly. So far, so good. Personally, I think Bitcoin will just continue to go up because more and more people hear about it and all the benefits of it and all the amazing aspects and characteristics of it. And if the halving narrative helps speed that up, then so be it.
Right. Well, and then particularly if it gains more and more legitimacy through stuff like the SEC approving the ETF, and that gives it access to more markets, and then maybe they get options, which gets access, just keeps getting more people interested.
Exactly.
What are they going to do with Ethereum ETFs?
Well, that's also coming down the pipeline. The SEC is due to make decisions about spot Ethereum ETFs early this summer. And again, Grayscale's in that as well. Our Ethereum product, Grayscale Ethereum Trust, has applied to uplist right here to the New York Stock Exchange.
Today, the crypto rally comes to a halt to end the week.
Oh, it did it by itself.
Sorry.
No, you're good. No, well, I mean, I don't know how much of that was Bitcoin propaganda, and how much of that was
that's his
feedback.
That's his job. So
yeah, it is Bitcoin propaganda. So, I mean, can you separate the propaganda from what you think is the reality, or do you think he was spot on?
I think there's nothing that was false in what he said. So I think he was spot on.
Was he leaving anything out really important?
Yeah, not your keys, not your coins. I would never. I'm the biggest Bitcoin advocate and supporter, probably, and I would never invest in these ETFs because to me it's insane. The whole point of Bitcoin is that you control your money, that you control what you have. Now, if one of these ETFs gets hacked or screwed up, that's going to be really bad for Bitcoin overall. That's going to be bad news. And I honestly don't see why it's not going to happen, unfortunately.
You mean basically someone gets access to the passphrases or whatever to get access to all these
Yeah. Some,
accounts, and then
I mean,
once that happens, they can empty it like that. There's no fail safe. There's no undoing it. It's just gone.
right. And the part of the crypto narrative, what's so important about it is to be in charge of your own money and your own finance, and be in charge of protecting and safeguarding your money, right? So when I hold my Bitcoins, the majority of it is in paper wallets that are encrypted. So even if you find the paper wallet, you still need to know a password. And I have multiple copies of them in different locations. I have a hardware wallet for semi more fungible funds that I might need to spend here and there. And then I have some small amounts in my phone wallet or whatever, kind of like an actual wallet that you walk around with, with some cash in it. So you have to store your funds appropriate to the risk you're willing to incur with those funds, right? With the majority of my funds, I don't want to incur any risk, so I put them in what I think is the safest possible storage, which is paper, so it can't be digitally hacked.
It can be hacked.
Exactly, and then also hardware wallets. I use a Ledger Nano S hardware wallet. I actually have one right here. Looks like this.
Isn't that just a USB drive?
It looks like one, doesn't it? But it has a little display on it here.
Yeah.
That allows you to log in. And it's pretty cool. I mean, it's really, so you connect it to your computer, and then the computer opens up. On the computer, you install the Ledger software, and then it shows you the funds on there. And if you want to spend the funds, it connects to the device, and I have to confirm and sign the transaction on the on the device. So the private keys never leave the device. They're never on the computer or anything like that. So that's great. I mean, these are great products that I recommend to anyone who wants to store a lot of crypto. And then also you have a passphrase for it. So if you lose the wallet, you can recover it via the passphrase.
Well, I think that's a fascinating idea, that there's a ticking time bomb with this whole thing, which is by making all these ETFs and investment organizations, you're undoing part of the security apparatus that the whole thing was designed around.
Right. There's going to be, because these ETFs preside over such gigantic pools of Bitcoins, they're going to be a magnet for hackers. And I mean, I assume they have thought about this, obviously, and they have all the safeguards in place, and knock on wood that nothing's going to happen.
Yeah, hopefully it's partitioned, so if a hacker is successful, they only got this chunk of it as opposed to the whole thing.
So that would be one thing to do, yeah. So I'm assuming they do all that kind of stuff. And then they probably have insurance for it too, So and another aspect of why I'm such a fan of the Coinbase stock is that Coinbase is the custodian for all these funds. They depend on Coinbase for storage and management of the funds that that they hold on their investors' behalf. So that's great for Coinbase. It's a great position. It's a powerful position to be in, and they do have the know-how. So that maybe that's a hopeful thing, that a company that has a long track record in crypto. Coinbase is not, they didn't just pop up recently or whatever. They've been around from the earliest days, almost. I remember them from since 2011 or 12 or so, if I'm not mistaken. And they've gone through hell to get to where they are now. They've gone through getting all the different money transmission licenses that you need in the 50 states in the US. They spend tens of millions of dollars on legal fees in order to get there, and they're continuing to do this on a global scale. They have not too long ago they acquired the license to do this in France. So they're acquiring institutional power that is going to be very hard to replicate for competitors as a crypto on-ramp. from the legacy financial system. Because let's face it, there's still a legacy financial system out there, and there probably will be for a long time. So Coinbase, I think, is a great company, a great stock to hold, in my opinion. Now you've muted. Why are you muted now? Can't hear you. I think switch again. Sound settings. Speakers. Speakers is audio. Weird. Oh, okay. I think I hear you now.
Test, test.
Yeah, I hear you now.
Oh, I have no idea what the fuck just happened. I changed nothing.
That's okay.
I was gonna say that was a good place to end it. Right after I say hell yeah, we could just cut it off.